The Raptors grind out a win versus the Utah Jazz. Scottie Barnes is named an All-Star. Brandon Ingram is snubbed. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I always get amazed right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
All right, folks. Brandon Ingram is officially the unsung hero of the Toronto Raptors. Tonight, he had 19 points, and he did it on 19 shots. Now, that might not be the most efficient night of basketball, but ultimately, all of his points mattered so much when the growing got tough for the Toronto Raptors. Mid-range buckets were his repertoire, but I really loved how much pressure he put on the basket, especially against a bigger Utah Jazz team. Here he tries to go one-on-one against Svi Mykhailiuk, easily, even despite all of the attention around him. Again, this is something we've talked about when it comes to Brandon Ingram so much, right? Boxes and elbows, not really giving him a lot of opportunities to work in this mid-range area. You see they're helping off of Mamu. RJ is doing the weak side cut. Same thing here from Emmanuel Quickly, who's shifting up here, trying to get some sort of open opportunities for BI and themselves. But regardless, BI gets downhill, finishes at the basket. I've really been impressed, and this is perhaps one of the things that Ingram has impressed me most with. It's his defensive, awareness off of the ball. On ball, he can still use some work and still some improvement, effort-wise, etc. But I think off of the ball is where you really see his defensive chops shine, especially in his ability to use his length on the weak side. So here, recognizes the backdoor cut happening, instantly springs to action, gets the steal, Raptors are out and running, and then he fuels their transition offense by getting to the hoop with the finish. And this is Brandon Ingram at his best, right? One-on-one against another defender, going against Lowry. And again, it's worth noting just the amount of attention that he deals with here. Boxes and elbows. And I will keep repeating that because look how the help defenders are sagged in on him. They don't want him to drive this ball and create open opportunities for his teammates. Svi Mykhailiuk pinched in here. Bryce Sensabaugh pinched in here. Collier here. Even Jusuf Nurkic, camped out, not respecting Mamu in that weak side corner. And so ultimately, he has to work in a shoebox of space, and he just does so consistently. In these flat kind of opportunities where it's him versus one defender and really just tons of help on where he's attacking. Even Walter Clayton completely lets Emmanuel Quickly shift over to the empty side here just because he wants to negate this driving opportunity for BI. But doesn't matter. BI settles into his post-up bag. And again, did a really good job of finishing at the basket tonight. His rebounding has been really important for this Raptors team. Of course, they're missing Jakob Poeltl. They need to gang rebound. And so you see these opportunities against Jusuf Nurkic, a guy who can get 20 rebounds on any given night if he wants to. It's a team effort, and BI here uses his length once again, catches this rebound, again, fuels the Raptors' offense in transition, settles into this little pump fake, and also draws the foul on Nurkic. And now they're clearing out the empty side. It's the fourth quarter. It is Brandon Ingram time for the Raptors, and so often we've seen this season, it's been feast or famine a little bit. I would like for the Raptors to change some of their offensive philosophy in the clutch to make it a little bit more diverse. But regardless, they went to BI, and he delivered in the clutch with this dagger fadeaway jumper. And so, folks, Brandon Ingram really helped the Raptors to this win. 19 points. I thought it's funny because, he ended up shooting 7 of 19 from the field tonight. But ultimately, what he provided was super important to a grinded out type of effort from the Toronto Raptors. 107-100 against the Utah Jazz team that was missing Keontae George, who's having a most improved type of season. And it was ugly. I can't lie to you guys. I can't sit here and say, this happened, etc. It was an ugly basketball game. It was grimy. The Raptors' transition offense was very bad, and they wasted many opportunities against the Jazz three-quarter press. There were a lot of turnovers, and it just felt like the Raptors couldn't get into their usual transition opportunities. And when they did get into their transition opportunities, they kind of fumbled the bag. That being said, They ended up scoring, let me see, 19 fast break points to the Utah's 7. So they still got out in transition. But here is what allowed Utah to stay in this game and at points even take a lead. So Utah, 48 points in the paint, Toronto 36. Utah, 22 second chance points, Toronto 8. Utah, 56 rebounds, 42 for the Toronto Raptors. They got absolutely outmatched on the inside. And of course, the combination of Yusuf Nurkic, of Lauri Markkanen, of Kyle Filipowski, the size of those three really made it difficult for the Raptors on the inside. I thought this was a strugglesome game for Colin Murray-Boyles, particularly as a scorer. Again, it felt like he was second-guessing himself. There was actually a moment early on in the game where Colin got an offensive rebound, and you could hear Scottie Barnes on the broadcast saying, "Put it up." And he doesn't put it up. He kicks it out to, I think it was RJ Barrett who missed the three. But like, it's clear, and this is from hearing Darko talk about it, hearing his teammates talk about it. They are asking him to shoot these shots. They are asking him to be more aggressive with his shot. In part of why Jakob Poeltl is so important to the Raptors offense is because like he's willing to roll and finish to the basket and score, work in that short roll area with his finisher. And that's why he's so important for this Raptors offense. He can juice their offense in a major way on top of the screen assists, on top of the playmaking that he provides. God, does this team miss Jakob Poeltl. That being said, the Raptors had to grind this out because of their size disadvantage tonight, because of the turnovers, because of the full court press that Utah was throwing out there that really mucked up the game for the Raptors. And so that's where you turn to Brandon Ingram and his 19 points on 19 shots and say, like, if I didn't watch this game and I was looking at the box score and I saw 19 points on 19 shots, I'd be like, damn, bad BI game. But it was not a bad BI game. I thought it was a good BI game in the sense that it showed you, why he got snubbed for the All-Star game and why he is an All-Star for this team. He got snubbed for the All-Star game because his counting stats don't look as illustrious as some of these other candidates. And, I will get to Scottie Barnes and his All-Star candidacy. He made his second All-Star game of his career, well-deserved, obviously all-defense level player, doing a lot for the Raptors. We'll talk about him in a second. But the fact that Brandon Ingram got snubbed, I think part of it is like you look at his counting stats and like it's just not showing you the full case or the full scenario for what he's providing on any given night. Of course, he's averaging 22 points. He's grabbing 5.9 rebounds. He's rebounding at a higher rate than he has before. 3.7 assists. His assist numbers are lower. It's actually the lowest it's been since he was a Laker. So that's part of what I think is kind of hurting his case. And of course, the efficiency has dropped a little bit here. He's, of course, shooting 36% from three, but 47% from the field. It's a little bit less efficient than his last couple of seasons. I think ultimately, the reason you're seeing some of that efficiency drop, some of the turnovers go up, some of the lack of assists is because of the context of the Toronto Raptors. It is because of the role that he plays for the Raptors, which is please save us in the half court. That is exactly the type of role that he plays in terms of, the mid-range shot making, the type of defense that he sees, right? The boxes and elbows that I showed you guys just now is very, very important to, I think, contextualize Brandon Ingram and his role for what this Raptors team requires of him. They need him to make and take tough shots because they can't generate quality looks outside of it. And you can argue, the passing and the cutting and all of that can work well, but it works well in moments and it works well in spurts and it works well particularly when the Raptors are turning the other team over and running and getting out in transition. When it doesn't work well is when you have a big team that they're facing, a la the Utah Jazz. The Raptors can't enforce themselves on the inside, so it's a tough game for Scottie Barnes offensively. RJ Barrett had a good night, really did a great job of drawing fouls. RJ finished with, let me just double check here. He finished with 21 points on 12 shots, ended up shooting 7 of 9 from the free throw line. So RJ did a really great job of getting into the teeth of the defense, drawing fouls, and getting himself to the free throw line, making his free throws also, which has obviously been a very important part for him generally. But I think the Raptors weren't able to feast on the inside as they usually do against teams, and it really limited them offensively tonight. On top of the fact that I think when it comes to Brandon Ingram's role, which is what I'm kind of spieling about here, what he is required to do is take and make tough shots. And the reason I keep hammering that is because this is what I expected coming into the year. If you have been listening to what I've been talking about, since September, I assumed that the Raptors would not have a good offense. They were 21st in offense coming into this season. I thought they would probably be somewhere around 16 to 20. That is a major improvement from last year, which was 25 to 30. They were a bottom 5 offense last year, and their efficiency when it came to scoring and different play actions was basically near the bottom of the league in every single type of play. That's not the case anymore, and a lot of that is because of Brandon Ingram. Because BI creates, generates, and gets the Raptors good shots. Do the Raptors make those shots consistently? No, they don't. And because they're not that good of a three-point shooting team, his assist numbers are lower than you see usually. Because he works in a sliver of space, and we talked about boxes and elbows, his efficiency isn't as high as it would be. His turnovers are a little bit higher than they usually are. And so that's why Brandon Ingram got snubbed. But Brandon Ingram absolutely is an all-star for this team. And by the way, he can still be an all-star. Giannis Antetokounmpo is injured. He's going to miss the all-star game. They will replace a player. I don't mean to wish injury on anybody else, but there is still time for another player to get injured. Knock on wood. I'm not saying it should, but it's just a possibility. And, who knows? Maybe Brandon Ingram ends up getting in the all-star game as well. Now, Scottie Barnes did make it to the all-star game, is absolutely deserving of making the all-star game. I think a lot of Scottie's all-star case lends to how he's been able to lean into a different role for the Raptors this season, in part because of Brandon Ingram taking on some of that scoring load. You're seeing a more efficient season from Scottie Barnes offensively. You're obviously seeing him have an incredible defensive player of the year type of case. And if you haven't, by the way, I wrote about Scottie's defensive player of the year case on Raptors Republic. You can go out and check that out. It's very accessible. You can go and read it. There are tons of stats that illuminate just how legitimate Scottie's case is. Obviously the stock numbers, the point differential when he's on the floor in terms of how he protects the basket, how he's guarding isolations. There's a lot of good stats in that article that I think contextualize why Scottie Barnes is well worth a shot, well worth at least an argument for a defensive player of the year candidacy. Does that mean he wins it? I don't know. Rudy Gobert has a really good case. Chet Holmgren is on the number 1 defense in the league. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama might not be eligible soon, but he clearly has a great case as well. And so it's an interesting defensive player of the year case nonetheless, but that's the type of season that Scottie Barnes has had. He's well on his way to being a first-team all-defense player. And I think he's also putting up an all-NBA type of season. Scottie, by the way, had a great defensive game tonight as well. As I mentioned, the lack of size for the Raptors tonight against the Nurkic, against the Markkanen, and Scottie did what he could to limit them on the inside. Let's break it down. Okay, so second chance points were the name of the game for the Utah Jazz. They get one here, and Scottie Barnes delivers one of his 6 stocks tonight. That's become a regular for him so far this season. He's been great at these chase down blocks as well, using the, pressure that his on-ball defenders provide. Just the split second of Brandon Ingram providing a contest gives Scottie the time to recover and get that block. That's what I meant by that full court press, by the way. So half court here, they get swamped. They try to find Scottie in the inside, and he just turns this ball over. But he recovers well a little bit later, blocks this Walter Clayton shot in the transition. This time guarding the pick and roll, switches onto Ace Bailey, contests the shot, then on the offensive rebound, swats this ball away from Kyle Filipowski. And this is exactly what I mean by using the on-ball defense. The timing of these blocks is really sick from Scottie. So he realizes that RJ Barrett is guarding him. He waits, right? Scottie is here in this moment. He's waiting, timing it up, and just great timing, great execution on that weak side block. So what I mean by battling on the inside with the bigs. So he gets Nurkic switched on to him. Nurkic is trying to get this post-entry pass. And again, Scottie, through the physical contact, steals this ball. He actually Gets injured on this play. He hurts his foot, holds it for a while. It was a scary moment for the Raptors. And ultimately, he came back in the game. He was okay. It seemed like he was fine, and he played the rest of the game. So I'm assuming everything is okay from Scottie Barnes. He does have moments like that where he falls on the floor and gets hurt, and then you're like, oh my god, what happened? But it seems like he's okay. Yeah, folks, that is the all-star case for these players. Like Scottie Barnes is putting together a defensive player of the year type of season, and that's why he's an all-star. I mean, of course, pushing it in transition, fueling the Raptors to, a top seed in the Eastern Conference, one of the best records in the Eastern Conference. All of that is part of Scottie Barnes' case this season. And, it's cool that the Raptors are back here with an opportunity to potentially have two All-Stars and two guys who are very deserving of All-Star opportunities for the Raptors. I think it's just a matter of seeing, how they can be a little bit more efficient. And I think my wife is giving me a tea. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I think that is ultimately, let me jump in here. Okay, tea in hand. A little bit of lemon citrus tea. Okay. Tea in hand. Thank you to the wife. Yes, the Raptors won this game. Want to give some shout outs to a couple of other players here. Sandro Mamukelashvili ended up with 20 points. He knocked down 4 threes. I thought offensively he was a very, very important release valve. Basically exactly what you wanted from him. And they ended up closing this game with Mamu because of what he provided offensively. The Raptors absolutely needed a spark. And like I've mentioned, Colin Murray-Boyles has struggled on the offensive end as of late. I think he's kind of second-guessing himself offensively a little bit. And you're seeing Mamu consume, I guess, those minutes where they need a little bit of an offensive punch from the 5 spot. That's about it, folks. It was a grimy game. It was an ugly game. It's one of those games that we will forget, hopefully, because it was ultimately the story of the night is that Scottie Barnes is named an All-Star. Brandon Ingram is wildly important to this team, even though he wasn't named an All-Star. RJ looked very good tonight against a bad defensive team, and you hope that is a sign of him continuously getting better. Mamu continues to provide an excellent punch off of the bench. He's a little feast or famine, when the shots aren't falling, like what's he getting to? But when the shots are falling like they do tonight, he's an incredibly important player for this team. Yeah, he requires a level of confidence boost, and I think the Raptors coaching staff does a great job of instilling confidence in Mamu. Overall, the Raptors have now won 30 games, folks. Can I get a little, golf clap? They have now won 30 games. They won 30 games all of last season. So they got to that 30-game mark on February 1st. And by the way, ultimately, it's very impressive that they're doing that. I'm not surprised that they're at this point, to be honest with you. When I came into this season, I always thought, 43 to 47 wins, 47 wins being on the higher end of things in terms of outcomes and 43 being kind of the base of what I imagine for this Raptors team. It seems like they're well within getting to that, They're 51 games into the season. They have about 30 games left. Can they get us to, 15 more wins, 16, 17 more wins? It's a tough schedule, but I think they can. And so I expect this team to fall somewhere between 43 and 47 wins again this season. Where does that land them in the Eastern Conference? Who knows? I'm not sure. The trade deadline is coming up, though. They play the Minnesota Timberwolves on Wednesday, and the trade deadline happens on Thursday. A little bit of a programming note. I will not be able to do the recap on Thursday night. I am in Chicago doing a trade deadline show for the Athletic NBA Daily. If you'd like to listen to that, go ahead. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Raptors Republic will also be hosting their own trade deadline show, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Trade deadline will be very, very exciting. We were only 4 days away. We've already got 2 trades in the books between the Trae Young trade and this Keon Ellis trade. And by the way, for the people who might be wondering about the Keon Ellis trade, I just want to mention that because I've had a lot of people in my Twitter asking, why didn't the Raptors get involved in that? They couldn't outbid that. It's like, brother, DeAndre Hunter was having a bad year. I'm not throwing RJ Barrett into the mix for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. All respect to Keon Ellis. I think he's a really good player, and I think he will probably get paid in Cleveland. But nah, man. Nah. DeAndre Hunter is not as good of a player as RJ Barrett is. And so I don't think the Raptors should have got involved in that. No, I don't think they should have outbid the Cleveland Cavaliers for Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder. I don't think they should have done that. I'm sorry. Anyways, that's all I got. Folks, I'll see you on Wednesday from Minnesota. Should be a good game. Or not, because as we've talked about in the last week, size is a big issue for this team. Three-point shooting is a big issue for this team. You know something the Minnesota Timberwolves do well? It's both of that. So we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Appreciate you guys as always. Like, comment, subscribe. Do the things that you guys usually do. We'll see you later. Peace.